So it's not just Van Hollen, also Cory Booker and others are planning a trip to fly to save the Maryland man. I just can't even. These people are evil. The Democrats are evil. I don't care if you're concerned about the deportation, that's fine. Just be honest. It is a man from El Salvador. He had 2 deportation orders to be returned to El Salvador. He had a temporary stay. Initially, the White House said, we were following it through the deportation orders, and they made a mistake because the filing for, my understanding is the filing for the stay is not stored in the same capacity. So they get a big list of people with deportation orders. They go deport them and go, wait, that guy had a stay. And they went, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about that now. El Salvador's got him. Now what the argument is, I believe Stephen Miller's arguing this. The Alien Enemies Act, once this organization was deemed a terrorist organization, supersedes the judge's stay, and we can remove alien invaders. And the Supreme Court agreed Trump can remove them. They agreed no one can force the president to engage in foreign policy actions, but in the event Abrego Garcia is able to be returned to the U.S., Trump must facilitate that. What that means, I don't know. But Democrats have decided to die on this hill, as it were. And is this the best they got? Is the only issue they have?
It's a big issue. I don't know if it's the best issue they got, but like if a president can say, because we're in a state of emergency since 2001, this group of people is a foreign terrorist organization now because they have ties to foreign country that we're at war with or that we're going to be at war with, then they can just deport them because they're a terrorist. Because they said they were a terrorist.
That doesn't really reflect what happened, did it?
He said MS-13 is a terrorist organization. Then that was their grounds to throw out a guy who had to stay.
Thank you, Ian. Let me take you home on this one. So I appreciate your response. I think you're actually referring to the NDAA 2012 indefinite detention provision that was signed into law by Barack Obama, which stated exactly as you said, that if someone was part of al-Qaeda, involved in September 11th, or an enemy and waging war against the United States, they could be indefinitely renditioned in black sites anywhere in the world, so if they wanted it. I believe that got repealed in 2024, so only last year. Now back to the main story we're talking about, where a guy who had a deportation order was deported.
Yeah,
you were saying?
Oh, the guy that had to stay on his deportation order was deported?
The guy with 2 deportation orders who was here illegally and a member of a criminal gang, MS-13, who was deported mistakenly, is in the custody of his own country for which he committed crimes, is now in his own prison, and we have no authority to get him out of that prison. So, yes.
So, what were you going to say, Phil?
Well, that was my understanding. The guy that we were talking about was an illegal alien. So the fact that he's deported is perfectly consistent with the law.
Well, if he has to stay on his
being that he was associated with MS-13, that's why Trump calls him a terrorist. But that's kind of notwithstanding the fact that he's here illegally, right? If he's an illegal alien and he's not, he's come here illegally, whatever the context, ship him home.
Well, if he has a stay on his deportation, you got to wait.
Why?
Because there's a stay on his deportation.
Yeah, but what was
is there a context in which something may supersede a stay from a judge?
Always. War.
But they'd have to prove that there had been a crime.
Or a terrorist designation under the Alien Enemies Act, for which the Supreme Court ruled that he does have the authority to deport people under?
Potentially. Here's my issue with it, though. Deportation's one thing, but they didn't just deport him. They sent him to a prison with no due process, where I assume he's not going to have a trial there either, correct?
Oh, that's a matter for a foreign country. I mean, we're not going to invade China and try and force China to release people from their prisons.
Why are we putting people in prison? Why can't we just
El
deport
Salvador
them?
did.
So they're charging him with crimes?
In El Salvador, if you are a member of MS-13, you go to jail. It's a crime. Okay. And that's how Nayib Bukele started. He started rounding up all the gang members. They made it illegal, and they started throwing everybody in prison. The criticism there was that innocent people were getting wrapped up in it. But that's a matter for a foreign country. Now, I do think there's concerns over when we deport people, and we can, what El Salvador does after the fact is of concern. But at the same time, the question as it pertains to this is a Salvadoran man is in a Salvadoran jail for crimes in El Salvador. Next question, I guess. So the concern there is, if we are just deporting anybody because we can deport them, and Trump is sending them to El Salvador, and then El Salvador is putting them in prison, there's a chain there where I have concerns with it.
Yeah.
The challenge, of course, however, is the due process afforded to illegal immigrants in this country is, are you here legally or not? No, then you leave. The Supreme Court ruled that these people are all entitled to habeas hearings, justifying whether or not they are to be held. That's the point. Okay. Are you here illegally? You are? Then we can deport you. If El Salvador, after the fact, imprisons them, the challenge then is the foreign policy action between the U.S. and El Salvador, not due process in the United States, for which that's negotiating power between Trump and El Salvador. So I do have concerns over if people. Here's the challenge, I suppose. Conservatives are going to say, we don't care. You came to this country illegally. That's your problem. And I believe Jack Posobiec mentioned that it was a deterrent. You come to this country illegally, maybe you'll be on the plane to El Salvador. I'm not a fan of making examples of people like that. In this specific capacity, the man who was here did have a stay. If it is true, as they initially argued, that he was mistakenly deported because I believe he had 2 removal orders and no asylum. The question then becomes, how do you have a stay on deportation without being granted asylum? What is the cause by which a judge can grant an indefinite stay on deportation? I'd argue that's unconstitutional. A judge doesn't have the authority to give de facto citizenship to an illegal immigrant here illegally with deportation orders. Yeah. So what we're actually dealing with is a constitutional crisis by which the judiciary de facto has tried to give an individual citizenship or second-class citizenship, which to me is alarming. And then the only real argument becomes, was Trump acting in a heavy-handed manner by sending him back to El Salvador, where El Salvador is going to put him in prison?
I don't think that they're what, like you said, what El Salvador does with any of the people that go back to El Salvador, that's their problem. That's a domestic issue for that country. The United States has millions of illegal immigrants that have come in, or that had come in the previous 4 years during the during the Biden administration. President Biden himself said, we want to see a surge. We want to see people surge the border for if you're seeking asylum. The administration allowed all kinds of breaking of the rules when it comes to the asylum claims. You shouldn't come to the United States through South America if you're looking for asylum, because Mexico's safe and there are multiple countries that these people could have stopped in. So right off the bat, it's breaking the law. The idea that we have to give everybody that's here that claimed asylum a hearing, I reject that, because they came here under false pretenses by an illegal method. They're supposed to come to ports of entry, and they didn't. They would just cross the border, and then DHS would pick them up, or the Border Patrol would pick them up. If they didn't come here and go to an actual port of entry, if they got picked up, beat it. I don't care. They shouldn't all
they're
get
hurting actual asylum seekers and doing that. That hurts the actual people in line.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.